everybody. We're going to do some standing yoga. Just a few poses to follow from the mat work if you follow from there, or just a little bit of a standing work on its own. So starting off up on all fours, just trying to get shoulders and hips a little bit warmer. Setting the hands directly below the shoulders, spreading the fingers, pushing the palms into the ground, tucking the toes under, lifting the knees up, and then pushing back into dog. Lengthening through the arms, locking the elbows, let the head drop down between the shoulders, allowing the neck to relax. And then to begin with, just to see if you can think of a nice longer pull coming from the hips. So can I try and straighten up my upper back? Can I try and straighten up my lower back? So making sure that I'm not rounding and curling, I'm lifting and lengthening, feeling the front of the shoulders opening up as if you're trying to drop your armpits down and towards the ground. With the seat bones are trying to curl up and towards the ceiling. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ease and back, dropping the knees down, pushing back into child, unloading the wrist, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the arms. So it's a little bit more connection into the arms, there's a little bit more connection through the feet. I'm going to see if I can warm up into the hips. So these time actively pulling in and out of the pose. Resetting yourself up on all fours, so tucking the toes under, lifting the knees up, pushing back into dog, letting the head drop down between the shoulders, between the arms, as if you can reach the hips as far back and as high up as you can. So imagine your legs like as springs, keeping the knees bent. As I spring forward, I want my right foot to come as close to my right hand as possible. Then I'm going to ease my way back. I'm going to load my springs again, and then left foot towards the left hand. And then easing back again. Right to the right, left to the left. It doesn't matter if I can't actually get to the hands, I'm trying. So it's trying to open up through the hip, trying to move in and out of the pose. Forward, and then coming back. One more time on each side. And then push back and hold. Lengthening through the arms, are setting the back first, and then these down, maintaining the back nice and straight. I'm going to start working into the legs. Think of the heels of the feet lengthening down and towards the ground. If possible, I might straighten up the legs. If I find that by straightening up the legs, my hips tend to curl under, my back tend to round, and my head and my shoulders tend to push forward, then straight legs is not for me at this very moment. I'm going to keep my knees bent and then see if I can maintain the back. 3, 2, 1. Looking forward, looking up. I'm going to step the right foot as far forward as I can. And then joining in with the left. Keeping the knees bent. Trying to slide the belly down and towards the thighs, and the rib cage down and towards the knees. With the head, I'm going to drop down and towards the feet. Reaching the hands around the back of the legs, as close to the feet as I can. Tucking the elbows behind the calf muscles, imagine to touch them there. Letting the head drop down, and then with the seat bones I'm going to lengthen my way up and towards the ceiling. Focusing on the legs the more this time. See if I can open up into the back of the knees. Create a nicer stretch into the back of the legs. Noticing where the pull is. If the belly starts pulling away from the thighs, the body starts lifting away from the legs, then the pull tends to shift into the back.
See if I can keep it into the legs, so keeping the knees bent if my hamstrings are too tight, but making sure that the belly's still pressed against the thighs. So the hip is flexed, so the hip is closed. It's the leg that is lengthening, not the back that is taking the slant. 3, 2, 1. Ease in the hug, but not the fold. Taking the hands back onto the hips, bending the knees, pushing yourself all the way up into standing. Giving the legs a little walk and making sure that the back of the leg doesn't feel too stiff, it doesn't feel too tight. And then setting the legs nice and close together, setting up into your Tadasana, setting up into your mountain. Feet and knees attaching if it's comfortable going that way. Keeping a gap between them if I find that I can't. It's just more comfortable getting some space in between. Lengthening through the arms. Think of the shoulders dropping down and away from the head. The arms are reaching long down the side. Pulling up through the front of the thighs. Think that nice lift coming up through the front of the thighs into the front of the hips. With the crown of the head reaching up and towards the ceiling, lengthening your way up. Growing as tall over the feet as you possibly can. Noticing if the weight is even between the right and the left leg. If the pressure is even between the front and the back of the foot. 3, 2, 1. See if you can make yourself longer, picking up the arms, 2 strong straight lines running in front of you, locking the elbows, dropping the shoulders, lifting the arms up and towards the ceiling, lifting up into your Hastasana, allowing the arms to open up a little bit wider. If you feel that the shoulder is a little bit restricted, the arm is started bending, the shoulder is started shrugging. See if you can avoid that, keeping the shoulders down, the neck is free to move, the elbows locked, the back of the arm still active, but more than anything, making sure that your back is still soft. The chest is not suddenly pushing forward, the back is not suddenly arching, I'm not leaning back. 3, 2, 1. See if you can make yourself even taller, pushing off the ground, rolling up onto the ball of the feet with the fingertips to see if you can touch the ceiling. Finding your point of balance, focusing on something in front of you, something that is not moving, that is going to allow you to stay there. 3, 2, 1. And releasing back, releasing the arms, releasing the feet, just a little bit more grounded. I feel my legs a little bit better. So standing to the front of the mat, I'm going to keep the right foot still, stepping back on the left. About 1.5 or 2 feet apart, making sure that the hips are facing straight forward, straight ahead, so I'm not twisted, I'm not wonky, I'm not slightly to the side. The left foot is slightly turned out to the side, encouraging the heel of the foot to press down into the ground. The arch is still lifted on the inside, so that leg is not twisting and buckling behind me. So locking that left leg nice and straight at the back, I'm going to tip forward from the right hip, and then I'm going to start hinging forward. Same as you did on your narrow fold to begin with. See if you can be aware of the pull staying into the hamstrings, into the back of the legs. If I can feel that my back starts rounding, so the hamstrings start pulling on the pelvis, and then the pelvis is pulling on the back, encouraging the right knee to bend slightly. See if you can find length through the back. With the tip of the nose, imagine to be overtaking your big toe. Once that I feel that I'm as long as I can be, then I'm going to start folding forward. Coming forward into your pyramid or your sideways angle. With the belly, I'm going to drop down onto the thighs. With the rib cage, I'm going to try and fall forward onto the knee. And then with the head, I'm going to move down and towards the foot. My hands are staying on the hips if I feel stable enough to do that. Holding on to that leg or placing the hands down onto the mat if I feel a bit too wobbly. And then feel where the stretch is. I want to lengthen and lift into that right leg. So can I make sure that my right seat bone is trying to lift up and towards the ceiling, as if that right seat bone drops down. So if the pelvis tips slightly to the right, I've lost the stretch through the hamstring. So see if I can pull up onto that right seat bone. The back of the pelvis is nice and level, nice and square at the back. The body falling forward. I can see myself getting closer and closer to that right foot. 3. 2. 1. Looking forward, looking up. Hands go back onto the hips if they're not already there. Pushing your way all the way back. Releasing the leg, releasing the hip. I'm going to try the same thing with the other side. So the left foot stays forward, the right I'm going to step back a similar distance. Turning the foot out slightly. Encouraging the hips to turn, face forward, face the front. Tipping forward from the hips, lengthening your way forward over that left leg. Same as before, I might have to bend the knee. Bend it if you need to do so. Once that I feel that I'm as long as I possibly can be, I can't reach myself any longer, any further, then I'm going to start my fold, closing that left hip further, trying to drop the belly down onto the thigh, allowing the ribcage to come forward onto the knee with the head trying to move down and towards the foot. Keeping the hands onto the hips, down on the floor, again whichever way it works the better. And then see if you can notice where the traction is. Can I feel that lift into that left seat bone? Can I encourage that lift? Is the pelvis level at the back, or does it feel as if one hip is slightly lower than the other? Can I try and bring my left hip level with the right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Looking forward, looking up. Hands go back onto the hips if they're not already there. Pushing yourself all the way back up to the top. Giving the legs a little walk, releasing the back of the leg. It's a little bit more movement at the back. I'm going to bring it to the front. So staying facing the shorter side of the mat. I'm going to step back on the right leg again. This time trying to open up into the right hip. The left foot pointing straight forward, straight ahead. The right foot is slightly out to the side. The hips are still facing straight. I'm going to drive down into the heel of the right foot, locking the knee with the back of the bum. This time I'm going to push my way forward. So bending that left knee, I'm going to lunge my way down. Adjusting the position of the left foot and making sure that from where I'm standing, I can see the toes in front of the knee. Just making sure that I'm not exaggerating and then twisting the hips. So I don't want to turn towards the long side of the mat. I want to stay facing the shorter side of the mat, straight ahead. Just no rotation into the back. Making sure that I'm not dumping everything into my lower back, so the back is not sinking, I'm not sagging into it. Squeezing with the back of the bum, see if I can think of the tailbone dropping, the lower back is staying soft. And then once that I feel that the legs are set, then setting the arms. 2 long straight lines running in front of you, dropping the shoulders, picking up the arms and lifting up into your warrior. Think of a nice longer lift that from the rib cage comes up through the arms all the way into your fingertips. And then imagine somebody holding onto your hips, so just gently easing your hips down. See if you can encourage a little bit more drop. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and releasing back, dropping the arms, stepping the legs back in, giving the legs a little walk. I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side, trying to open up into that left hip. So the right foot stays forward and the left foot steps back a similar distance. So turning the left foot out slightly, pressing the heel of the foot down into the ground. The left knee is locked, the heel pressing down, the arches lifted on the inside, the hips are square to the front. Same as on the other side, little squeeze with that left hip with the back of the bum, and then I'm going to start dropping my way down into my lunge. Adjusting the position of that right foot, making sure that from where I'm standing you can see the toes. So the knee is not going past the toes, I'm not creating pressure at the front of the knee. The back leg is taking the majority of the weight. I'm working hard to push myself backwards. The lower back feels loose, feels soft, setting the arms, two longer straight lines, running in front of you, locking the elbows, dropping the shoulders, picking up the arms. Think of that nice lift that from the side of the rib cage lifts all the way up into your fingertips. Think of that gentle pull that from the hips is taking you down deeper into that lunge. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and releasing back, easing the arms, releasing the legs and giving the legs a little walk, changing the direction of the pull again. I want a little bit more going through the inner thigh and into the hips, so stepping the feet out nice and wide, 3 to 4 feet apart, closer to 3 if I'm quite flexible, closer to 4 if I'm quite stiff, so it's the other way around, wider if I'm stiffer. Turning the feet so that your little toes are pointing forward, so if anywhere the foot is slightly turned in, so encouraging the back of the hips to open. I don't want to crash my sacroiliac joint or my lower back. I'm going to tip forward from the hips. It's the same as you did on your sideways angle onto your little pyramid pose. Making sure that the movement is coming from the hip joint flexing, not the back rounding. So I'm going to tip forward from the hips. Again, I might have to bend the knees. I'm just going to allow the knees to bend. Lengthening yourself as far forward as you can, and then once that you feel that you can't go any further, then I'm going to start my fold. Imagine to be wedging the belly into the space between the inner thigh, the rib cage into the space between the knees, and then with the head I'm going to try and drop down into the space between the feet. Walking the hands down the back of the legs, reaching as close to the feet as you can, using the strength of the belly, the strength of the hips, and the strength of the arms to deepen the pose. With the seatbelt trying to lift up and towards the ceiling, with the head trying to reach down and towards the ground. If the head is touching the floor, your legs are too far apart. Walk the feet a little bit closer together and then see if you can try and go deeper into that fold instead. 3, 2, 1. Looking forward, looking up. Hands go back onto the hips. Bend the knees as much as you need. Pushing all the way back up to the top. Shuffling the legs all the way back in. Giving the legs a little walk, a little shake. And then I'm going to change the direction of the pull one more time. I want a little bit more opening around the hips into the side of the legs. So I'm going to set up into eagle. Just working on the legs and leaving the arms out. I'm going to step the feet nice and close together, and then bending the knees I'm going to drop down into a little squat. I'm going to lift the right leg up, and then I'm going to cross it over the left. Squeezing the legs nice and close together. The legs are working against each other. If one is too floppy, then the balance will tend to wobble, will tend to go. Keeping the big toe down on the ground to begin with, so finding the nice balance, the position, lifting the big toe when you're ready to do so. If I've got the flexibility to do so, then I'll be hooking the foot behind the calf, making sure that the knees are still facing the front. Think of the back of the hips, on the side of the hips, the side of the legs are lengthening and opening as you're trying to squeeze the legs closer together. And then pressing the palm of the hands together, thumbs to the breastbone, dropping the shoulders as if you can sit down deeper into that squat. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and easing back. Releasing the legs and releasing the hips. I'm going to try exactly the same thing, but winding the legs the other way. So bending the knees and sitting down into that little squat. Lifting that left leg, crossing it over the right to squeezing the legs together. See if I can get the balance going between them. Lifting the big toe if I can. Going for the full locker behind the calf if I can get that far. Making sure that the knees are still facing forward. Palm of the hands together, thumb to the breastbone, dropping the shoulders. See if you can sink your hips lower into that squat. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and releasing back, unwinding the legs, releasing the hips, giving the legs a little walk, a little shake. Then when you're ready, turning to face the shorter side of the mat, stepping the feet nice and close together, tipping forward from the hips, bending the knees, coming forward into your Uttanasana, coming forward into your narrow fold. The belly down onto the thighs, the ribcage down onto the hips of the head. I'm just going to let it down, go down and towards the feet, setting the hands down by the side of the feet to spread the fingers, push the palms into the ground, stepping one leg back, stepping the other leg back, locking the arms directly above the hands, so the shoulders are directly above the hands, setting up into a high plank. Think of the shoulders supporting you from the top, so making sure that the shoulders are not collapsing, pushing the floor away. Feeling the front of the thigh tense and behind, the thighs locking, the knee locking nice and straight. And then trying to think of the body as a straight line. Not a floppy one sagging in the middle, but a nice strong one that from the head goes all the way into the heels of the feet. 3, 2, 1. If you know that you've got the strength through the arms to stay up onto the toes, if you know that no way, I'm going to drop the knees, I'm going to bend the elbows, and then see if you can think of your chest being the first thing to touch the ground. So I'm going to lower myself down, the chest comes down, the belly follows through, hips and thighs. Pushing back onto hands and knees, stretching back into child. The big toes come together, knees open up as wide as you need them to be, to allow space for the belly, allow space for the breath, allowing the head to come down, the arms are down the side, palm to face up and towards the ceiling, encouraging the shoulders to drop, the arms to relax. As you're ready to release, I'm curling all the way back. Taking the legs around to the side, bring them to the front, coming down into sitting. If you want to follow through with one of the seated routine, please click on the next video. Otherwise, finishing off with a little bit of Shavasana. Lying down on your back, the back of the head, the back of the shoulders, the back of the hips are resting on the mat. Legs straight or bent, whichever way feels more comfortable for your hips and your lower back. Letting go of the legs, letting go of the arms. Find your breath. Notice where the breath is. If I feel that the breath is up into my neck, is that rushed breath or that panic breath? See if you can encourage the breath and the body to calm down. Nice deep inhalation through the belly. And then exhaling, relaxing out. If there is any tension left anywhere within the body, imagine to be able to breathe that tension away. Make your Shavasana last for as long as you want. And then for the time being, Namaste. I hope I'll see you all soon.